Hola mis amores, welcome to the Empowermente podcast, the headquarters of personal empowerment. I'm your host, Gina Moreno, and I'm so excited for today's episode. I met this person here in Phoenix, and she's one of those people that I just clicked with. Her name is Dr. Mara Noemi López, and she's the inaugural director of the Hispanic Serving Institution Research Center at the University of Arizona. For more than 17 years, she has led research initiatives that amplify student voices, advance equity, and create inclusive environments where historically marginalized students can thrive. Dr. Lopez's research spans curriculum redesign, career decision-making, self-efficacy, and student-conscious pedagogical practices with a particular focus on improving STEM pathways from K to 12 through higher education. So she has been a part of really big projects, y'all. She earned her BA in psychology from San Diego State University, an MA in organizational leadership, so cool, from Point Loma Nazarene University, and an Ed.D. in leadership and innovation from Arizona State University. So through her leadership, life, and mentorship, Dr. Lopez strives to be an agent of change, transforming systems to better serve the diverse communities. Oh my gosh. She is absolutely phenomenal, y'all. She's super real, down to earth, and definitely a role model in our community. So I'm super excited to just have a conversation with her. I hope you take a lot from it. Let me know what you think. And sí, muchos saludos. Welcome to Empowermente, the headquarters of personal empowerment. Dr. Mara, we are so happy to have you today. Thank you so much for being part of Empowermente podcast. It is an honor to be here with you today and share your story. Mara and I connected in Phoenix because when I moved here, we went to I think I met you for the first time in the Empower Her event.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. And I was like, why do I not know this woman? Why are we not connected? So it was a perfect way to start getting to know each other. And yes, I'm so grateful that you're here. How are you?
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me. I mean, you've done such incredible work, so I feel really honored to be here to talk to cut up a little bit with you and share a little bit about my story. So yeah.
Yes. Well, let's get right to it. So, why don't we introduce you? Like, if you had to describe yourself without the titles and without the accolades, it's what we were talking about at a recent event that we were at. It's actually from Young and Empowered, which is how we met. Um, they were
Mhm.
talking about like if they were to ask you who you were without your titles, what would you say? How would you describe yourself?
So I love this question. I think that it's important to know that like we could be all of these amazing things, but there's always something that makes you uniquely you, right? As you were asking that question, the first thing that popped up is like I'm soy mexicana. You know, I'm very proud to be mexicana first and foremost. I'm a mom, I'm a tia, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a cousin, amiga, colega, nina, all of those things. Those are things that make that I'm very proud to hold as my part of my personhood. But in addition to that, I think that something that also kind of helps to describe a little bit about who I am is I consider myself a hobby collector. So I'm that friend that will always try anything once. Like, you want to go to yoga? Sure. You want to go to Pilates? Sure. Although Pilates is hard.
Yes.
Hard. Okay. I give props to all the Pilates girlies out there.
See.
I like to work out. I work out probably about 5 times a week. So yeah, I like being active. I like moving my body, and I like new experiences too.
I love that. And as we're talking, my kitties are wanting to jump into the bedroom. So just FYI, but I love to hear that. I think it's amazing to be such a full human being and have a full life and have the privilege to be all these things and do all these things, which is part of what we're going to talk about today, your background, and you also identify as like first gen and what that means. So tell us a little bit about one second. My cat is like right here. um,
Mhm.
So in your intro, I talked a little bit about your educational background, and your studies. I'm curious to know, before we dive into the story of how you got into higher education and all of that. What is your current
Mhm.
work? I'm interested in knowing about your everyday and the research that you do.
Yeah, so my job title is I am the inaugural HSI Research Center Director at the University of Arizona. I've been in research now almost 17 years and in higher ed for just as long. So I really love this work. And I would say overall, collectively, all of the work that I've done has been to amplify the experiences, advocate for communities of color, students of color, you know, parents of color. When I worked in San Diego, a lot of the research that I did was oriented towards public health. So we worked with a lot of families in like South San Diego. A lot of our research work was bilingual too, to make sure that it was accessible and that the data was accessible, that the parents and the families understood the information that was being shared. And most recently, a lot of the work that I've done has been research oriented towards how we make STEM spaces, STEM educational spaces, more inclusive, equitable, and accessible to all students, especially students that come in from maybe more diverse communities too.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you're able to give back to the community through your talent and work and your gifts. That's really, really amazing. So you said you're in the beginning, your work was about healthcare and more related to health, and now it's about higher education and inclusion in
Yeah.
STEM for HSIs. Actually, I want to learn more about that. Like, a lot of us don't know a lot of what's going on in research and why it's important. So, if you had to share to somebody that has never heard of somebody that does what you do, can you kind of just give us an overview of what does it mean and why it's important?
So I think that's a really good question. And if I'm going to speak broadly, so originally my research career started in public health, right? Working on a childhood obesity prevention project, making sure that families that lived within, like all the families that we had recruited were within a mile radius of a recreation center. So the concept, the research was oriented towards accessibility to the research, the recreation center. And while they were there, we were providing them information about like how to eat
Mm,
healthy, dietary and like information and vegetables and how to make vegetables fun for kids. So the research at the point at that time, while it was different, it was still oriented towards how do we increase access to physical activity and
mm,
increase access to information about how to eat healthy.
wow. Yeah.
And then I went on to work for one of the largest longitudinal studies, I think to date, on Latinos. It's called the Study of Latinos.
Mhm.
And it was an epidemiological study where we were studying what the prevalence was of different health disparities within the Latino community. There was 4 different sites. And so that was for like data collection. We wanted to know so that we can inform the public, right? So it was knowledge acquisition and knowledge sharing. So the research projects could either be oriented towards increasing access, opportunity, and information, or knowledge acquisition so that we could then share the knowledge with the
Mm,
public.
yeah.
Since then, I did like some education research where we kind of just try to explore what's working for which students and what environment do they learn best in
Mm,
so that we can inform faculty and administrators and hopefully institutions so that institutions can show up better to serve their students. So, research essentially is the way we inform the next iteration of our decision making. Without research, intentional research, conscious and mindful research, ethical research, it's going to be very difficult to inform the next iteration of support for our communities.
this is so important, and you did a marvelous job at explaining it. And for the first part, which is the public health piece,
Mhm.
and even in education, I think the research can be not equal, right? When we talk about even just normal health research with medicine and things like that, we find that a lot of the research is made on men. And then like
Mhm,
women are completely different and we have different hormonal cycles. So in the same way, it's important to do research for very specific groups of people because we have different needs and we have different obstacles and different things that are going to prevent us from getting, in the first case, healthcare, in the second case, education. And so if we
mhm,
care about bringing our communities with us to these spaces of higher education and even just getting appropriate healthcare, it's important to have their life and their perspective in mind. So I'm just obsessed. Like I love your job. It just sounds like so amazing. And thank you for sharing all of that with us. So now that you have this wonderful experience in your job and you're able to give back in a way that is so unique, what inspired
mhm.
you to pursue higher education? And you have kids. Like what inspired you to do it while you have kids?
Yeah, so I think that that's a really good question. So I've always been pretty like academically inclined. My mom's a was a school teacher for many years, so like we could never let our grades drop too much. But really, what tethered me to my educational journey originally was sports. So I was a three sport college athlete. I played volleyball, basketball, and softball through college through 2 years, and that's why I really was interested in pursuing education, was because I wanted to play sports. Right after my 2 years of eligibility to play at the junior college level was up, and I no longer wanted to do sports anymore. I wasn't really tethered to the academic process because I had played sports for 10 years already at that point. That was my main pull there to get a strong GPA to continue going. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of scrambled around a little bit. I didn't really ask for help, because I was kind of, was raised of the like, you can just do it yourself. Don't ask for help. You're fine. Calladita te ves más bonita. In that sense, too, don't ruffle feathers. Like, you just got it. And I didn't got it. I didn't got it for many years. Um, but I still knew that I wanted to do something that was within the realm of like health, fitness, something like that. So while I was still pursuing taking a class here, a class there, like very nada que ver, not intentional at all, I found this job. It was a family health coach, and this was almost 17 years ago, and that was my first job in research. The principal investigator of that research project ended up being my mentor for many years. We still have a strong relationship. And he was the one that actually was like, okay, te tienes que poner las pilas, mana. Like, come on. All right. Like, you've been in your bachelor's program for like a long time, and I had been working with him on and off different research projects for a while. And then an opportunity came about. And this opportunity changed the trajectory of my career and my academic and professional career. And it was an opportunity to work as a program manager for a training and mentoring program for students that were considered underrepresented in public health. So these are like Black and Brown students, first generation students, right? Students with different abilities. But my mentor was like, okay, I want to offer you this job. I think you're the best person for it, but you have to finish your bachelor's degree. And by this time, I was like 10 years into this journey. I had been academically disqualified. I had put on probation. I was really not tethered to this process. Like, I was like, I'll just get a job. I don't really care about academia. And I was not ever moving forward until he was like, I see you. You belong. You're amazing. Just do it. Just come on, get it together. And so I got that job. I worked with these incredible students. This was now 14 years ago. I still have a strong relationship with
Oh,
many of those
I love
students. Many of
that.
them have gone on to become doctors, lawyers, psychologists, get their PhDs. They've become parents, nurses. I'm officiating one of their weddings next
I love
year.
that.
I saw myself in them, and I think that they saw themselves in me. And I was like, okay, this is my purpose.
Oh, yeah.
When I finished my bachelor's degree, my daughter was 6 months old.
Mm,
So not only did it take me 12 years to finish my bachelor's,
wow.
but my daughter was 6 months old. And I think that for a long time that was a source of like pena, me dio pena, like it took me so long and I didn't really talk much about it. I didn't really celebrate the moment because another thing that has happened, that happened at least, um, I was a product of my environment where they talk a lot about like the traditional student. And I
Mhm.
have kind of a little bit of an ick towards the concept of the traditional student, meaning that you finish in 4 years, you know exactly what you're going to do, and you go on to pursue your career, and that's the career you have for the rest of your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
and and shout out to the many students that have that trajectory. But for many of us, the majority of us that do not have that trajectory, we feel like failures at different points.
Mm.
So like I didn't celebrate that moment, but I remember that I had kind of gotten the speed of, I got the hang of school. I
Yes.
got the hang of like, I know that this could do something. I know that I'm tethered to purpose now. So I went on to pursue my master's. And when I finished my master's, my son was 6 months old.
Mm.
So while I was in my master's program, I worked full time. I had a baby, then a toddler, then I had another baby. And I was like, well, why don't I just keep this going? You know, I figured out why not just apply for my doctoral program? No
Mhm.
pasa nada. So when I entered my doctoral program, now we've moved from California. We're in Arizona. I'm in my doctoral program. I'm nursing my son the first full year of my doctoral program, writing papers 1 to 3 in the morning, working full time with a
Mhm.
toddler, and then the pandemic hits.
Yes.
So they were like second year of my program, homeschooling the kids, working virtually for the first time, figuring it out. And I think that what inspired me to stay to course was the fact that there are many people that have a story like mine as a student parent, but not very many people that are supported along the way.
Mm.
Right. So the idea then is that, you know, finish your degree and then have kids later,
Mhm.
finish your degree and then get married later. But you're constantly pausing your own life
Mhm.
for someone else's timeline.
Mhm. Mhm.
And at one point, I was in my doctoral program, there was someone that was like, pues no vas a poder hacer esto, you know, you're a mom, you can't do this. And I was like, oh, watch me, just watch me. So another part of it was like, one, to change the narrative, two, because I can, and three, I'm a little bit motivated by spite,
Yeah,
right?
I think spite is a
A
great
little
motivator.
it's a great motivator, right? The other thing is, you know, my nana, she and I have a very strong relationship. She's now 98 years old. I love her so much. Que Dios la bendiga. Um, she has a third grade education.
Yeah.
And she has always told me, like, te va a ir bien, mija, te va a ir bien. She's always supported me. She's never known half the stuff that I do, but she's always advocated for me. My mom, you know, she's got her, she's always supported me in that process. And so the other thing is that I do this for me and I do this for them too, you know.
Yes.
My daughter will never ever question, can I get a doctorate?
Mhm.
No question, you know.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that and taking us. I could feel the feeling of pride as you were talking, and it is so phenomenal to watch women do what they can do. And going from your bachelor's, and perhaps you're like, oh, it's this thing, and I take a few classes to getting the hang of it, and then I'm gonna do my master's, and I'm already, hey, let me just do my doctorate, like if it's no big deal.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you're aware that you didn't want to celebrate it because of that shame, that
Hmm.
shame, like, oh, it's not worth celebrating because it took me this long to do it, right? Like it was that feeling.
Yeah. And I held on to that for such a long time, and then I was like, wait, why did I allow the narrative of society, someone else, to control my narrative? Right? Why did I let that happen? I wish I would have celebrated them because I finished,
Yeah.
you know, and it's enough to finish. And I remember I used to teach these first year success courses at ASU for a while. And I had one student that actually changed my perception. They were like, well, yeah, but you don't understand because, you know, you have your doctorate already. And I was like, oh, wait. Let me just humanize this space right now. No, I do understand. And it was the first time that I had articulated that it took me 12 years to get my bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
You know? And they were like, wait, what? They just had kind of assumed that because I had my doctorate, that I was like, I was good, that I've been good. And I'm like, no, I was on the struggle bus for a long time. You
Yeah.
know, and what changed it for me was mentorship, increased sense of belonging that I acquired through both roles and my colegas and my friends, and then also asking for help. When I arrived at ASU, there were no, I finished in 2021. There were no Latina faculty. There were no faculty of color that I had teaching my courses. It was very difficult to see myself represented in the coursework, but we weren't, right?
Mhm.
And in the curriculum where we weren't.
Yeah.
So I found myself building communities on social media because there's a lot of us out there, even though they're not in your local context, right? So just finding ways to reach out, ask for help, and building your community kind of helped me supersede those moments of, where I doubted myself and really stand true into like, this is what I want and I can do this.
And I think that's why sharing your experiences and shining your essence and your light with students and everyone is so important, because I know that that moment that you were, hey, it took me 12 years. Her mind was probably blown. Like she was like, "What?" Like, because
Yeah.
sometimes we have such narratives and structures in our brain of like, "Oh, I mean, she's a doctor, she's
Mm,
this person," and we create this idea. But when I'm sure that many people and
yeah.
students, when they hear you, they're like, "Wow, so you mean I could do that? You mean that you were where I was?" And it's
Mhm,
so
mhm,
impactful. And it is truly phenomenal that you're able to provide that representation for students and create a sense of belonging. And I want to go a little bit deeper into that too. So you said that what helped you was an increased sense of belonging.
mhm,
Another thing that helped you was mentorship. And then
mhm.
the last thing was, you said one more thing.
Community.
Community. So
Yeah.
what do you think, curious, creates
Yeah.
a sense, or asking for help is what you had said, asking for
Oh,
help.
no,
Yeah.
yeah,
And okay, first before I go into the other one, asking for help is against independent first gen eldest daughter rules. We're
yeah.
not supposed to do that. You ask for help,
You don't you
that's
don't
not
know
what
her.
we
Help.
do. So yeah, so we're actively fighting against our own upbringing, culture, beliefs, right? What we believe they're supposed to be. So I want to normalize that it's so hard. But when it comes to belonging, I think the words have changed, right? Like from DEI to belonging, inclusion, but it's about feeling like you can be part of the room and you're worth being part of the
Yeah.
room. Your voice is worthy to be heard. What do you think helped you? And through your research, feel free to add on. What do you think creates a sense of belonging so that students can feel, hey, I can
Mm,
actually do this? Or I
mhm.
think it's also translatable to other spaces like corporate or like spaces that we are very, very underrepresented.
Yeah, so thank you. That's a really good question, and I think that there's multiple ways to kind of approach it, right? So I think what matters is that someone feels seen, someone feels heard. So, for example, if I'm faculty, I want to ensure that the students' lived experiences is integrated into the classroom,
Mm,
starting by asking a question as simple as the one that you kind of pitched in the morning, or at the top of this podcast is, what makes you uniquely you?
yeah.
Or tell me something that you feel is culturally significant to you.
Mm,
So, for example, when I did teach this class, I used to do this thing called a culture share, where I would put together a photo collage on one little slide, and I would open an open
wow.
plain slide deck, and I let the students kind of populate it with one slide deck, and they do a photo collage on there. And it was everything that makes you that means something to you, that is culturally significant to you,
Mm,
right? This doesn't have to be racially or ethnically culturally significant. It's whatever you identify as culture to you. I just want to know a little bit about you, right? And so on mine, I have pictures of books, I have pictures of my kids, I have pictures of me in my like in a folklorico dress, and then I have pictures of pizza with hot Cheetos on
that's that should be illegal, Anna.
And so for me, the idea is to humanize the space and be like, I am all of these things. These things are important to me: family, coach, like my Hispanic culture, my being Mexicana, but also, hot Cheetos is the longest relationship I've had in my life. We've been in there like since I was 15, and just kind of being a little silly. And what emerged from that is that students were populating their little slide decks with pictures of food, pictures that there was one student that was like, I'm a part of this like skate club. So this is my culture. So there was like a bunch of like skate parks and different skateboards that they've done, that they've like
Wow.
used.
Yeah.
So it was just, who are you? And just so that you know, I want to know, and I want you to share this. This is a shared space here. So I think that that contributed to their sense of belonging. Then it was like, tell me a little bit about what you know about this topic, right? So integrating their prior knowledge in addition to their lived experience. What do you know? Like, I want to know what you know so that we can all get to know one another and know more about things, right? So integrating prior knowledge, prior lived experiences, all of those things matter. And then just really kind of affirming that, there's really no such thing as imposter syndrome. If I'm here and you're here, then we both belong here. The doubt that sets in when you don't see someone that looks like you or see someone that has the same accolades as you, all of that is set up to make you fail, essentially, right? So, you think about all the Latinas that have doctoral degrees, we're still less than, I think the last percentage that I saw, less than 3% of the population has a doctorate.
Mm-hmm.
So if I go to an academic conference, for example, I used to go to many STEM conferences and I see very few of me in there, I don't feel imposter syndrome. I feel proud because, in spite of how the system is set up and how many different levels of support there aren't for example, student parents or women of color in STEM spaces, I'm already there. I'm there. I'm there with you and with you and with you. I belong.
Yeah.
So just kind of showing students that even if you don't see yourself represented, and while representation does matter, representation is not liberation. Just kind of affirming for yourself, like, if you're here and I'm here, we both belong here, you know?
Yes. I think what you said about being seen is so profound that that's what creates
Mm,
the ability for you to say like, oh, I belong, and my voice here matters, and I have equal weight here, right? I think being seen for who you really are. And I think
mhm,
it takes a lot of work to be able to get to the point where that can happen, right? Not
mhm,
necessarily just because of your own upbringing and your beliefs, like we were talking about. For a lot of us, we were raised with like a that there was más bonita, like, don't call too much
mhm,
attention to yourself, maybe for even legal reasons, like system things, right? And so to be able to understand that it's really about the system. And you said another word, you said humanize, and I think that is so important.
mhm,
I think a lot of these systems, I don't know, I have this perspective, Dr. Mara, you can tell me what you think, but all these systems are so great. They're so great. They feel very structured and very like not colorful, right? And I think maybe it's the culture part there, whereas like maybe, I'm used to just having this lively time because I'm so bubbly and I'm the way that I am,
yeah,
right? But I think these spaces are a certain way, and I think if we fully embody who we are with confidence, we can make a difference and influence them.
absolutely. And it matters how we take up space, right? Like, when I'm thinking about being seen, like, you and I are from two different generations. So I'm a little older than you.
You can't,
Just
no,
a little.
no, you can't tell.
So you and I are from different generations. When I entered undergrad, when I was thinking about going to academic conferences, I had one mental image of what to wear at the conference. And I think you have the same mental image, right? A black pencil skirt, like a black blazer, some black flats, maybe some black pumps, neutral nails, neutral makeup, a little black bag, right? That's what we see. That's the image of what it would look like to be socially acceptable in that space.
Yeah.
And also, it completely rubs you of your identity if that's not your vibe, if that's not your style, right? So then I was like, well, that's what am I doing? Who am I doing that for? I'm not doing that for me. That's not what I wear. That's not my thing. Right. So it was like, okay, big gold hoops, red nails, red lips. I wear my pumps. I wear my J's. I wear my huipil. When I defended my dissertation, because we were still in the era of the pandemic, we defended all virtually. I had my huipil that my mom had got me from Mexico City when she was on. It had a beautiful butterfly embroidery on it because she sees me as her bright butterfly.
Mm.
My nana and my mom were there on Zoom. I have it I have a little snippet of it that my brother took. It's on my Instagram, and my mom and my nana were there. My mom and my nana worked in the fields in California for many years, and many years that they were told that they could not go beyond where they were, that they didn't have to, that they didn't need to, better to get married and find a rich husband or whatever. And so that also helped them feel seen too, that I was successful, that I was representing our culture in that space, that when you think about it, traditionally did not accept that sort of thing,
Yes.
you know? So I think it's like, what matters to you? How do you see yourself? How do you see yourself
Mm.
representing yourself?
Yeah.
That's the part of the conversation we don't often talk about when we talk about how representation matters. We think about if you see it, you can be it. We're thinking that way. We're thinking externally. If I see faculty of color, if I see doctoras, if I see that, if I see it, I can be it.
Mm.
But when we don't often say, if I can see it in the mirror, you have to see yourself in that space. You have to believe that you belong in that space too. That matters too.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. I think um it does matter how you see yourself, right? It's like the internal and external always. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it takes a lot, again, to get to that
Mm-hmm.
point. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
to be to a point where I feel comfortable wearing the outfit that I like. I did a keynote in a pink blazer and pink pants,
Yeah.
and I had red
Yeah.
hair because
Yeah.
I liked my red hair, okay? And I think about the
Yeah.
conferences that I would go in 2015, 2016, and of
Mhm.
course it was that.
Mhm.
I'm a zillennial, okay? So then I would wear the pencil skirt, and the black blazer, and it was very, very great. It was not a reflection of who I really was. Um,
Exactly.
but I want to say that it is hard to get from that 2016 Gina or 2015 to the 2025. Like, it's taken a lot. It's taken a lot. So I'm
Yeah.
curious to know, and you kind of talked about it a little bit already, but how do you think about that? Like, for the women that still feel that they're not showing up completely themselves in the environments that
Mhm.
they navigate, right? Again, it could be corporate, academia, conferences.
Mhm.
How do you foster a mindset of taking up space, and like, who I am is who I am, and I'm just showing up, right? Like, what do you think is
Mhm.
that mindset or thing that helped you show up the most? And I know you mentioned a little bit about it already, but I'm curious to know, for people listening that are like, that sounds great and all, y'all, but I don't
Yeah.
feel comfortable, or I don't feel confident, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good question too. So I'll give you an example, and then I'll answer the question. A couple years ago, I was invited to participate as a keynote for a national STEM conference in Wichita, Kansas. Right, so like kind of, I've never been there before, and it's a STEM conference. I arrived predominantly white, predominantly older men, and I scanned the room and I was like, I was at the networking conference before my keynote, and I was like, man, it was like one, two, three, there's like 5, 10 of us here. Like, oh my God, there's hundreds of people here. And I had an outfit already planned for that day, but I also had like a little backup outfit and other things that I could switch up. And I was like, wait, let me just wear the traditional outfit, because I don't want que no quiero que me ven así como que, oh, okay, this Latina. Then I was like, wait, hold on. But that's who I am. Who I am is Latina. I like this, I like that. This is my style, this is my vibe. That's who I am. I was invited to come here and speak. My perspective is of value. I am of value. That means that I'm going to show up as my whole self, and I'm going to work like, but I have to do a lot of that self talk.
Yeah, and it's almost like taking a step back when you're
Yeah.
like in the thick of it of like, oh, I'm gonna do this, and then you're like,
Wait a minute.
wait a second, and it's almost like deconditioning ourselves.
100%. And it's cyclical. Sometimes it takes a minute, sometimes it takes an evening, sometimes you don't decide until an hour before. And that day I was like, I'm gonna show up how I want to show up. So I had my red lips, I had these big gold door knockers, I had my shell toe Adidas, and I'm on stage and I'm just like speaking on it. I'm speaking on behalf of the students that I advocate for. And I look like many of my students, and many of my students look like me. So if that's who I'm speaking on behalf of, and that's who I want to represent, why would I change myself to look more like what they want me to look like?
Dr. Mana. And I think it's also the perspective. It's a good question. Who are you doing this for?
Mm-hmm.
Are you
Mm-hmm.
thinking about yourself? Are you thinking
Mm-hmm.
about the people that make up the majority of the space already? Or
Mm-hmm.
are you thinking about the people that you want to serve?
100%. And I think that this is an ongoing dialogue, and it comes in waves given the context that we're in, right? I think for many years, for us Latinas, we had this narrative that we've had to wash from our minds of, again, like, te ves más bonita, or you're more digestible when you're demure. And then now, I'm so proud of how we're like, if I'm not digestible, then you can choke, kind of thing. Like, where we are now.
Yes.
But 20 years ago, we were not in that space. So when I embarked upon my undergraduate career 20 years ago, like showing my age a little bit here, that narrative was not there. We didn't have the MySpace was like barely a thing. There was no Facebook or Instagram. Like, we weren't mobilizing like that. We weren't changing the narratives like that. And I think that it's important for us to lean in, but also lean in with some discernment, right? And some intentionality. Like, still be professional, still be 10 toes down about your work. I'm not just showing up looking all like whatever without knowing what I'm talking about too. I come with all the receipts and come with all the knowledge, but I'm also going to come with my whole self and reclaim the space that is important that we reclaim.
I hope everybody can hear that I'm snapping. I hope it doesn't edit it out. Amazing. Yes. And I really wanted to dive deep into that, and we can go into your motherhood journey because I'm really curious about that. But I wanted to dive deeper into that because I am a person who coaches women on
Yeah.
their confidence and courage and taking up space,
Mhm.
in their business and in the things that they're creating, their personal brand and public speaking. And I think the majority of the work that we do is the internal, because that really affects how they showed up. And so I thought it was important to review that. And I recently found myself in an experience which I'm going to make a video about, but I'm an entrepreneur, so I work by myself most of the time. But again, my clients are mostly Latinas, and I love that for me. I've created my dream job. But
Yeah.
I recently started going to different organizational meetings to improve on my crafts, my personal brand knowledge,
Yeah.
my public speaking knowledge, and things like that. And I have found myself in very wide spaces again. And so
Mhm.
it was very, very interesting to see the transformation of myself of like a few
Mhm.
years back to now, how I show up. And it's exactly that. Like, I don't minimize myself, I don't change myself. It is the way that I am. And again, if you can't digest it, go choke on it then, and I have my receipts. There's in a specific space, there's people trying to do what I've already done 4 years ago,
Mhm.
right? So then,
Mhm.
I have my knowledge and my experiences on check. And
Yeah.
so I think it's important to just continue to show up in the different dimensions that you are. So gracias, thank you for sharing all of that. I think it was very important to dive into that. So we're getting ready to wrap up, but a super important part of who you are is that you're a mother, right? You shared with us that your kid was 6 months for your bachelor's, and then your other kid was 6 months for your master's. So it's been an experience.
Mhm.
I'm personally not a mother, but a lot of our audience members I'm sure can resonate a little bit, at least with your experiences. So I'm wondering what you wish people understood about, being a student mother and being now a working mother. Um, and then we can go into practical advice. But what do you think is misunderstood and people wish they knew more about that?
One, I wish that mothers weren't guilted and shamed so much for pursuing their professional goals. I think that that was something that I kind of navigated. Like when I had already my bachelor's and my master's, and I wanted to pursue my doctorate now with two kids or like a baby and a toddler, was like, but why? What do you mean you want to get your doctor's, like your doctorate degree? Like, why at this point? Isn't it enough? I'm like, why does that have to be enough? Would you say that to a man with two kids? Why do you say that to a woman? We get guilted and shamed because we're supposed to fit into this box of like, you have to be at home, like barefoot, pregnant in the kitchen kind of thing. And I'm like, that's like, listen, the other thing is that as I was pursuing all of these things, there's also this narrative that when you have kids, you stop everything because they make everything, like they make you stop everything. My kids were my greatest motivation. If I'm doing anything today, it's for them tomorrow,
Mhm,
always.
mhm.
If I'm working towards making systems, educational systems, more equitable, more inclusive, more accessible, increasing the visibility of our experiences, it's so that they don't have to when they get to this point in their academic journey, right? They are my greatest motivation. And was it hard? Yes. Was it expensive? 100%. Did I do it? Yes. You know, and I think that that's not a narrative that we hear enough, is that you can still do it.
Yeah.
You will have to find a way. You will have to be resourceful. I didn't have like built-in childcare. My mom lives 4 hours away.
Mm,
My nana lives 4 hours away. So I had to be strategic with my time and intentional, but it's possible. But the other thing is that what tethered me to my purpose in my journey when it got hard, when it got hairy, when I was exhausted,
mhm,
was my why. And that's 100% tethered into my motherhood.
mm.
I want to make sure that they don't have to endure so much exclusion when they get to a point where they're navigating their educational journey. If it's possible that I can contribute it to any kind of institutional change, that's my why.
So good. I really admire you. It's amazing what you have done, and just thinking back on the conversation that we've had, you mentioned that when you were defending your dissertation, that's monumental and that's such a big milestone, and to be able to wear the clothes that we wear, your mom
Mm,
watching, tu
mm,
abuelita, tus hijos, it's so monumental. And I hope that you never forget how significant that is, to get to that point and to be the person that you are, a giving person, a loving person. I'm so in awe and I'm so grateful to have you here. I'm like teary. I'm like, oh my God, this is so amazing. Before we wrap up, I would love to have you share any practical advice, for maybe women who are in the thick of not feeling included, or maybe first gen Latinas that are still in their educational journey, and maybe also our mothers. Any practical advice before we head out?
Yes. So first of all, thank you, Gina, for saying that. I am very proud of my accomplishments. It did also take me a little while to get to that point, but I see myself through my baby's eyes. I see myself through my family's eyes, through your eyes. Like, I'm proud of you and the work that you're doing to amplify the experiences of the Latinas that you work with, because it's important. We matter. Our stories matter. That the pay gap is still what it is at like 15% plus. We are still pushing percentages, but we also have to push the narrative that we can, that it's possible, that we don't have to settle for less, that we can push glass ceilings and acquire degrees at any stage and age, right? I think that the advice that I have now is the advice I would have gotten when I was younger, embarking upon my academic journey. Is like, it's okay to ask for help. You're not less than because you want more information. That narrative, like, basura con eso, like, no tiene chiste that you would suffer in silence. Reach out. If there's someone on like social media or Instagram or whatever that you admire or inspires you, reach out to them, send them a DM. Most of us that are in this space that are helping to do things that we're doing, like lift as we climb, amplify message, most of us will respond, right? Because that's kind of, we live in the spirit of that kind of service. I have served on different dissertation committees for different Latinas over the course of my, since I graduated with my doctorate. And most of them I have gotten through social media, through a DM. We just built a mentorship like that, right? So definitely reach out, ask for help. If you get one no and you've reached out 3 times and you get 2 yeses, then you're still moving forward, right? Ask for help. Find yourself an affirmation block that you remind yourself that que eres poderosa, que tú sí puedes, que eres chingona, whatever it is, however you like. My affirmation block in my head is yelling at me a little bit. Like it talks to me like my nana, ay, eres chingona, but like talking to
I love it. It's like
my,
a mantra. I love it.
yes, my mantra is like a little bit yelling at me, but that's how I receive it, right? My mantra is not like butterflies and rolling creeks and
¿Cómo
stuff like
chingados
that.
no? ¿Cómo chingados no vas a
I know.
poder?
I remember telling my mom something, and she was like, "I'm mommy." It's like, "No hay de otra." Like, just fucking go. That's how I hear
Yes.
things. But whatever your affirmation block is, find it, lean into it, repeat it, and believe it. Like, feel it in your bones constantly.
Yeah.
Find your affirmation group. I have a strong group of people that if I were to text any one of these people and be like, "Girl, I'm having a hard time. I feel stuck. I'm nervous. I'm this. I'm that." They're coming with all the ammo of affirmations, like "You got this. You're amazing." Da 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 da. And sometimes you're just like, "Okay, I needed to see myself. Thank you for being my mirror. I got this." So find your affirmation block. Find your affirmation group, right? And then find what makes you uniquely you, and lean into that fully, and relinquish any narrative of who you have to be in whatever these spaces, because these spaces were not built for us. We carved out spaces that serve us in the systems that were built to work against us. Find what makes you uniquely you and be 10 toes down in that. For a long time, when I was going to these academic conferences, I would also wear like sarape earrings. Coco Chenzo, shout out to her. She's on Instagram. She used to make these sarape earrings, and that's how I would represent. I was always representing, I have still always been representing parts of my culture, because often my culture was not included in that space. But I'm here, I'm repping, and I'm here to stay.
Yes, thank you so much for all of that wisdom, Dr. Mara. It was phenomenal to hear about your story. Where can people and listeners connect with you if they want to just to say hi, say thank you? Where can they connect with you?
So you can follow me on social media. It's at doctora.lopez on
Yes,
Instagram.
Instagram. Love that. And any final messages before we part?
Just reclaim, stay claim in any space that you're in. And also, when you're in a moment, give yourself grace and pace. You got this.
Sí, muchas gracias. Muchas gracias.